Well, hey guys, welcome to House Parties at Student Night Live. It is so good to be here with you guys. We know it's a little bit cold outside, possibly some snow if the weather forecast held up. But then again, those are never really right in Colorado. But either way, we're thrilled you guys are here. Special welcome to everyone joining us online. We love that you're a part of this in a digital way. But we got a good night planned for you guys, hopefully. I think it's going to be good.
Should be good.
Should be good. I mean, I love the conversations our house party has, which gets a little hard sometimes because we got a lot of people on our house party, but yeah, it's super fun. It's great. Super fun. But we're working on getting some more leaders, so hopefully we can maybe break some of those down into somewhat smaller groups. That'd be kind of cool. But yeah, kick it off. Let's go ahead and talk about some slices. What do you got?
Mine is not recent news. It's just something that I learned. So I don't know if you guys have seen the Lord of the Rings trilogy.
So good.
It's really, really good. The dude who plays Gimli, his name is John Rhys Davies?
Yeah, dude, he's like a really famous actor.
Yeah. So he played this dwarf with an axe, and there's all these battle scenes, and apparently he did not care for choreographed battle scenes, and
I get that.
So there was a bunch of the stunt guys who were playing the orcs, and they were like wearing this body armor, and before they filmed the scene, he just said, "Who's gonna come at me first?" And one of the guys would say, "Well, I'll come at you first." And he said, "Okay." And they said, when we come to you, try to miss, but if you hit us, it's okay. And one of the other actors said he would hit them every single time. So they're like...
With a big old axe?
Yeah. So I want to rewatch these scenes because it's unplanned, unchoreographed, and it's just a dude with an axe beating people.
Have you ever seen that old Indiana Jones movie where... like Indy is fighting this ninja guy who comes at him with a bunch of swords and all that stuff. Good. Mm-hmm. So in the original script, Indy was supposed to grab a sword and to be able to fight him. But I think he was feeling sick that day, or he had to really go to the bathroom or something like that. And so that scene where he just looks at the guy and grabs his gun and shoots him, total improv.
That's so
But the
good.
director loved it so much, they decided to keep it.
That's so good.
Sometimes the improv scenes are the best.
That's right.
Yep. All right, so for my slice, as you guys know, this last year, many of us were introduced to a brand new thing called Zoom.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And one of the struggles that I always had when I had to do my meetings and basically my whole life over Zoom was, how am I supposed to dress? Now, there was a university that recently decided to do a study where they wanted to figure out, okay, what is the best way to dress in order to create the most productivity for the people who are sitting behind a computer on Zoom all day. And so they looked at two groups of people. There were the people who dress up, right? Got dressed like they were normally going to work or to school or something like that. And then there were the people who decided to stay in their PJs. And what they found was actually really fascinating. The people who dressed up as if they were going about a normal day, they actually experienced a whole lot more productivity during the day than the people who didn't. But conversely, the people who decided to show up just wearing their jammies, they experienced a whole lot more creativity. They weren't as productive, but they were way more creative than the people who got dressed up. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. You know what a mullet is, right? I mean, I know.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so a mullet,
I know I can't have one. Yes, thank you.
Business up front, party in the back. They wanted to figure out, okay, what would happen with like the mullet of clothing? And for them, that's dressed up top.
Oh, yeah.
Party down below.
Absolutely.
They found out that people who took the mullet approach to their clothes, so they dress nice up top, wore their jammies down below, they experienced less productivity and less creativity than everybody else. They called it clothing dissonance. It's like
Crazy.
Their mind was absolutely confused and didn't know what they were supposed to do. So for you guys, if you end up going back online or you're doing online school right now, pick one or the other. Dress up nicely or just wear your jammies. I promise you're going to get better grades.
Did they study it where if you wore dress pants and then a pajama top instead of...
I still think that would be what they called clothing dissonance. That's still a mullet. It's like a reverse mullet.
I don't know.
Can you imagine what a mullet would look like? Like a reverse mullet? Is there a thing as a reverse mullet?
Where it like comes down in the front?
You know, I think that's just like an emo haircut.
And then shaved on top?
That's like every emo punk band's lead singer's haircut where it's just...
Yeah, I don't know. I might have to like go the route of Grace and start wearing wigs. Just like
Okay.
like ones that like aren't.
How many of you guys,
obviously
throw
my
your hands
hair.
in here, how many of you guys want to see Stetson wear a wig next week?
Actually, I would hate to do that. I take this back.
Okay. We're going to come up with a contest. And whoever wins the contest gets to select which type of wig you're going to wear.
Okay.
And we also get to select the location in which you're going to wear it.
What?
Like, I'm picturing you in the lobby at church on a Sunday morning.
I thought you meant a location on my body. I was like,
no, the location. Like, I'm picturing everyone at the church just trying to look at you, figuring out what is going on. Grace, can we borrow one of your wigs?
No.
It's gonna be a contest that's really hard to win, but if they could do it, will you take a hit for the team?
I'm not wearing a wig in the church lobby.
Why not?
Because all of a sudden, like, any clout or influence I have just like tanks.
But then people will stop calling you the beard guy and they'll call you the
They
wig guy.
don't call me the beard guy.
Some people do.
If I put glitter in my beard, I would become the beard
Gospel
guy
ninja.
instead of the guy with the beard. Yeah, see, that's exactly what I'm talking about. You do one thing and everyone labels that as your identity. You guys know what I'm talking about.
They might not know what you're talking about, but we'll eventually find the video clip and show it. Tony's filming Stetson talking about something, and Stetson does the one gospel ninja thing, and then literally for the next like 6 months, whenever people saw you in the lobby at church, they would do that, didn't they?
They did. It was annoying.
I'm gonna bring it back.
Ugh.
All right, well, that's it for Slices. We'll have some more next week. Interesting things that we see happening in the world and learning and culture. But for now, we're gonna start our conversation. Yes, judge me for all you want. About
No, that was really natural.
Okay,
we now
perfect.
transition into the time of conversation.
We're in a series on the Ten Commandments, really looking at kind of God's design, blueprint, whatever you want to call it, for the ways in which we live our lives to experience things the way He's created us to. And rules, as we've said, they're really good things. They don't, act as like these things that are really oppressive. They're actually things that can set us free if we do them the way that we're supposed to. And one of the things that we've actually found has been kind of interesting is that the way a lot of people think about Ten Commandments isn't the way we're actually supposed to think about them, right? A lot of us, we've got this really legalistic approach to them. I have to do this, I can't do that. But what we find, and we'll see this a little bit today, and something that Jesus says, is that a lot of us, we're actually missing the heart of what these things are all about.
Yep.
And so it's been fun. We've done 5 so far. Hopefully this last week you guys got to, think about what honoring your parents looks like. Maybe even found some ways to practically do that. But today we're going to be on to commandment number 6. So Stetson, why don't you tell us what this one is?
This is a tricky one.
It is.
Takes a lot of self-control.
100, especially between me and Stetson.
Yeah. It is. You shall not murder. That's it.
That's it. Just comes out of Exodus.
Don't murder people.
2013. Now I got to be honest. Like, there are a lot of the commands that are in the Ten Commandments that like I could fully identify with. I'm like, yeah, I shouldn't covet. Yeah, what? I need to rest. This one. This isn't really one that I think about a whole lot, right? Like, this isn't one that, I don't have this compulsion to go around murdering people.
Right, yeah. We don't actually want to murder each other.
No, we don't.
We have a lot of fun together.
We have a lot of fun. And so I think to fully understand what this command is about, like, we've actually got to put ourselves into the position of these ancient Israelites. Because their world, what they were coming out of, was so different than ours. Like, today we've got this thing called the justice system. We've got laws, we've got rules, we've got ways to penalize people, and if they don't do the thing they're supposed to do, we've got a place to put them.
Right.
We can throw them in prison, but back then, none of that stuff existed. It was a way different world.
Yeah. You did something wrong, they just killed you. Like, that was their solution.
I know. It was like, oh, you stole my donkey. I kill you.
Murder.
You steal my land. I kill your wife. I know. It's like that's how they dealt with stuff.
Yeah.
All these nations, and especially for like the Israelites, and Stetson, you referenced this a couple weeks ago, but like they were coming out of slavery in Egypt.
Yep.
And as slaves in Egypt, like their lives literally had no value beyond the things that they could produce. And so when they got old, what did they do?
They either let them starve to death, which I would argue is like
murder,
as good as killing them, or they would just kill them on the spot.
Yeah, it was brutal. And so this command from God to the people to not do this thing that everybody else did. Like, this was actually kind of a revolutionary command at that time.
Yeah.
Because what God is saying is like, look, I want you to be different than everybody else. I want you to be set apart. I don't want you to just treat a human life like it doesn't matter.
Right, for sure. It totally, like, it was this groundbreaking way of thinking about how can we make wrong things right again. Of like, so if someone stole your horse, instead of killing them, the community would make that person give the horse back. If you said something to insult another person, like, you'd have a conversation and talk it out instead of having like a rock fight where someone died at the end of it. Rock fights are kind of fun.
They can be, as long as you're not the one getting hit.
That's true. But if both people are throwing rocks, little rocks,
Pebbles.
pebble fight. Pebble fight.
So at the heart of this command is really actually something that I don't think has to do with murder at all. And it's this idea that all human life is sacred.
Right.
That life is precious. That life matters. Right? And this is actually something we see like that goes all the way back to the beginning of creation, right? You read the book of Genesis, you see that God made, all the plants, he made all of the animals, and then he made humanity on day 6. And there was a reason that humans were different than everything else that came before them. Like, we don't cry when we eat a hamburger, at least most of us don't, right? We don't cry when we eat a
I think
chicken.
I have once.
Okay, but like,
I was
because
really hungry.
It was probably so good, right? But like, we don't weep over these things because we know there is a difference between the value of the life of a human being and the life of, say, that chicken that I ate last night.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the reason is because of what we see in Genesis 1 and 2. It's humans. We've got the image of God within us.
Yeah, we've been very intentionally made. Like, I try to say this often, you exist because God wanted you to exist. Like, regardless of what your parents might say, you're not an accident. I know I was an accident. I was not planned or
You're
expected.
a whoopsie baby?
I was a whoopsie baby. But like, this also shows not just that we are supposed to value human life, but how much God values your life. Like, a human being, they have life because God is life and he gave them life. If someone was to take the life of another person, we're getting into the territory where you're now starting to take away something that belonged to God. That's a scary thought. Like, that's a sobering thought. It's like, your life is God's, and it's yours too, but it's like God treasures you, and you know that by the fact that your heart is beating right now. And for someone to take that away, God would be incredibly upset about that.
And not just upset, like, I think he'd be grieved. Like, that hurts his heart when stuff happens like this, when we're just so flippant. And this command here, right, this command to not kill, it's all rooted in this idea that all life is precious. This is why the church has historically taken pretty strong stances on issues like suicide and abortion, right? For a lot of people, these become these political issues of, well, you can't tell me what to do with my body and this and that and the other thing. And we know that some of you guys have that, and we're not trying to bash on that. But for us, man, we know God values life. And if God values life, and when I say life, I mean literally all life, right? Not just unborn life. Like, he values all life. So whether it's a homeless person, a rich person, somebody in the middle, like, God cares about all of that. And if he does, we need to as well.
Absolutely.
And there's lots of conversations we can have about what that looks like and about how we step into that. But these are some really hot topic issues, and we just want to put it out there. Like, if you guys want to talk about this in your groups, like, we would love to, but we want to do it with a biblical lens, right? So often we approach so many things like with our political lens, and then we try to make the Bible fit within that. But I think, as we've seen in the series, is we actually got to start with God and say, okay, God, what do you say? How do you direct us? Okay, you value life. What is that actually going to look like in the way that we live our lives? Like, how does that impact the way we make decisions?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you think about suicide too. Like, I know a lot of you have lost friends to this terrible, terrible thing. And you've experienced in that moment how awful it is when a life is no longer present anymore. Like like you talked about Genesis, in the very beginning, God created this perfect creation, and then death got introduced into it, and then death is like spread throughout it. So like death is like one of the most obvious examples that things in this world are not exactly as they should be. And so when we see someone who ends their own life, or someone who chooses to end another person's life, it's like, this is not right. This is not what it should be. And like this command is like saying, do not murder. If we were to intentionally cause another human being to die, we are embracing the enemy that Jesus came to destroy.
Yeah, and Jesus, we see this in the Gospels. He came to bring life, right? Everywhere he went, he brought life. And so a part of our mission and mandate as followers is to do that same thing, right? So if we don't bring death, we need to bring life. And so with everything, we've got to ask, okay, how can I bring life here? How could I help people experience more of this thing that God wants for them and step into this new reality that Jesus has brought into our world? And this goes far beyond just the issue of life itself, right? Like, in terms of like murder or not murder, which seems like a pretty easy one, don't murder.
Yep.
But this is like in every relationship. Are we bringing life where we are? Are we bringing death? Are we speaking life, or are we killing people? Now, Jesus actually had said something to say about this command as well. And I think this is really interesting, right? Because we always want to get after the heart of the matter. This one seems pretty black and white, don't kill, but Jesus kind of actually takes it one step further. Would you go ahead and read what Jesus had to say in Matthew 5:21 to 22?
Oh, let me look it up here. Stand by.
It's Matthew 5:21 to 22. Because Jesus had something to say to a bunch of people who only interpreted this very legalistically.
Matthew 5:21, 22. You have heard that it was said to those of old, you shall not murder, and whoever murders will be liable to judgment. But I say to you that everyone who is angry with his brother will be liable to judgment. Whoever insults his brother will be liable to the council. Whoever says you blah, 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 blah. But it's that first part that we're talking about. Everyone who is angry with his brother will be liable to judgment. So he's equating the feeling of wanting to kill someone, whether or not you're going to go through with it, just like this feeling of anger towards another person, to the actual act of ending someone's life.
And this is really important, right? Because every action that we ever take with our hands, it first begins in our mind.
Yep.
Right? Like, you're not just walking down the street and think, no, there's somebody, I'm going to kill them. Right? No, like for most people, it's this hatred that's been developing. I mean, look at any of the mass shootings that have happened. You can go look at the journals of these people who have committed these atrocious acts. It's like they wrote about it, that somebody had wronged them. They began to stew on that thing. They began to develop a hatred for another person. And eventually these things that we allow into our head, they make their way into our heart. And eventually they're going to manifest themselves in the things that we do. And what Jesus is saying here, it was so revolutionary for that culture, but it also seems so obvious. It's like, look, if we don't want to be a people who kill people, then we can't be a people who hate people.
Yep.
We've got to actually take control of our emotions. We've got to take control of the things that we're thinking about. Like, look, the reality is, I know none of you, hopefully, fingers crossed, are ever going to physically kill another person. But what I do know is this, is that in your schools, in your families, you are harboring anger towards other people. You're dealing with it, right? Maybe somebody said something to you. Maybe somebody did something to you. Maybe there's just somebody who rubs you the wrong way, and you have been allowing this this culture of death that Setson was talking about, right? Like this thing that Satan brought into the world. You're allowing that into your heart when you begin to dwell on these things, when you allow them to begin to consume you. And what Jesus is inviting us into is to lay that down. It's to say no to this old way of living, to this old way of thinking, to this very punitive justice system that says, you hurt me, I'm going to hurt you back, so that we could say yes to life.
Yeah.
So that we could say yes to this thing that he's inviting us into, with the goal that those people we're angry at might experience the same life that Jesus has invited us into.
Which is brilliant, because what we've seen historically is when you kill someone who's killed someone that you love, it doesn't really make you feel any better.
No.
It doesn't resolve anything. It doesn't bring closure. When you allow anger towards someone to like stay inside of you, instead of harming them, it's harming you. Like it's just like rotting you from the inside out. So like we've been talking about with these 10 commandments, is like God is not trying to like legalistically give us a whole bunch of don'ts of like, you can't do this, you can't do this, you can't do this. He's like, no, I don't want to see you like spread death through your actions or allow death to spread inside of you by being angry towards another person. Yeah. Like he's wanting us to experience freedom from these things that will suck the life out of us.
The best way I've heard it said is this, is that choosing to be angry with another person is like drinking poison, hoping it hurts them. Mm-hmm. Right? You know, when we hang on to this anger, when we hang on to this bitterness and this animosity, we're the only ones who get hurt.
Absolutely.
And Jesus is inviting us just to lay it down. Hey, Siri. I love when Siri does that. And so my question is this. It's like, how do we overcome this? Right? Like, because we all deal with anger, right? Like, I deal with anger. Mm-hmm. In fact, just the other day, like, you know, like, well, I'm not going to get into that, but like all the time, like there's these things that can frustrate me, and we all have an option of what to do. And so what do you think is a good strategy for overcoming some of this stuff, or maybe changing the way our heart feels about other people?
A boxing class.
Boxing class.
That's the big idea. Take a boxing class.
But in all seriousness,
I love throwing you off. What the true big idea that we wanted to share with you guys is value life.
No, not the big idea. What's a practical strategy for that?
What's your practical strategy?
Pray for him.
Okay.
No, like for real, seriously.
I can't read your mind.
Well, it's also written down. But honestly, like when you choose to pray for somebody that you're angry with, it's really hard to say angry with them.
It's true. Yeah.
Like you cannot harbor feelings of bitterness and animosity towards another person when you're actually praying that God would bless them.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. And that's the key. It's like not just praying. It's like, God, would you please hurt that person?
Yeah.
It's like, no, like praying that God would actually bless that person's life.
Yeah. And what happens is you do this is that person that you were angry with, you're gonna
Siri is my hero today. So
but
good.
When you do this, you're actually gonna find that anger turns into love.
Yeah.
You're gonna begin to develop a heart for them that reflects the heart of Jesus.
Yeah. Maybe not instantly, but over time.
It takes time. Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. So now, would you give us the big idea?
Sure. Value life, and not only in your actions, but also in our minds too.
Yeah. Value life, guys. Right? We don't want to kill. We don't want to destroy. We want to value life because that's going to actually get us up to a place where we can begin to create life instead of death.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Cool. So we're going to break out into house parties now, give you guys a chance to be able to process this. And hopefully there's some good conversation that comes out of it. And we'll be back next week for commandment number 7.
Bye-bye.